The rain came down in sheets that September afternoon in 1967, turning the gravel path into a river of mud and stones. Michael Harrison stood at his post outside Riddlesworth Hall, a boarding school hidden deep in the Norfolk countryside. His uniform was soaked through, but he didn't move. Royal Guards never moved. He'd been stationed there for 3 months, watching over the daughters of Britain's elite. Politicians, children, aristocrats' daughters. And among them, 2 little Spencer girls whose grandmother was a lady in waiting to the Queen. Mother herself. But something was wrong that day. Michael heard it before he saw it. The roar of an engine, too fast for the narrow country road. Tires skidding on wet pavement. Then a car came flying around the corner, a cream-colored Rover sedan, spraying water like a speedboat. His hand went to his radio instinctively. The car screeched to a stop at the gate. The driver's door flew open. A woman stumbled out, elegant even in her panic. Frances Shandkid. He recognized her immediately. The Honorable Mrs. Shandkid, mother of Diana and Sarah Spencer. Her hair was disheveled. Her eyes were red. And she was running. "My daughters," she gasped, gripping the iron gate. "I need to see my daughters. Now." Michael stepped forward, blocking her path. Protocol was clear. No unscheduled visits, no exceptions. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but visiting hours ended at 3 o'clock. You'll need to, you don't understand." Her voice cracked. "I'm leaving tomorrow. For Scotland. I won't see them for months. Maybe longer." The rain poured harder. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Michael had been trained for this. Stick to the rules. Protect the children from disruption. The headmistress had been explicit. Frances Shandkid was in the middle of a scandalous divorce. The Earl Spencer had custody. Her visits were restricted. "Ma'am, I have my orders. If you'd like to schedule, please." She pressed her forehead against the gate. "Diana is 6 years old. 6. She cries for me every night. The staff told me. She thinks I don't love her anymore." Something twisted in Michael's chest. He had a daughter, too. "Same age? I can call the headmistress," he offered quietly. "There's no time." Frances's voice rose. "My train leaves at 7. If I don't see them now, they'll think I abandoned them. Do you understand? They'll think I chose to leave." Before Michael could respond, a small voice called out from behind him. "Mummy." He turned. 2 little girls stood at the main door of the school, both in matching blue uniforms. The younger one, tiny, with blonde hair, stood frozen. "Diana." Frances made a sound like a wounded animal. "Diana." "Sarah." She shook the gate. "My darlings." Michael's radio crackled. The headmistress's voice, sharp and clear. "Harrison, deny entry. The Countess Spencer has telephoned. Mrs. Shandkid is not permitted on grounds." The older girl, Sarah, grabbed her sister's hand, but Diana broke free. She started running down the path, her little shoes splashing through puddles.
"Mummy, Mummy."
Frances was climbing the gate now, her expensive coat tearing on the iron spikes. Michael faced an impossible choice. Stop a desperate mother from reaching her child, or break the protocol he'd sworn to uphold. The rain hammered down. Diana was running faster. Frances was almost over the gate, and Michael Harrison made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He stepped aside, but what happened next would make headlines across Britain and change how he understood duty, love, and the price of protocol forever. If this story is already gripping you, hit that subscribe button, because what comes next is something no royal biography ever dared to print. **** Frances dropped to the ground on the school side of the gate, landing hard on her knees. She didn't seem to feel it. She was already reaching for Diana, who crashed into her arms with such force they both nearly toppled over. "Mummy, Mummy." Diana buried her face in her mother's neck, repeating the word like a prayer. Michael watched Sarah standing at the doorway, older and more cautious at 9 years old. She didn't run, but her face crumpled like paper, torn between loyalty to her father and the mother she missed desperately. Frances was crying now, Holding Diana so tight, the little girl squeaked, "I'm here, darling. I'm here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Michael's radio crackled again. "Harrison, status report. Has the situation been contained?" He pressed the button slowly. "The children are safe, ma'am. Mrs. Shankid is on school grounds." The pause that followed felt like ice. "You let her in?" "The child was running toward the gate, ma'am. Safety protocol required. Get her out now, or I'm calling the Earl Spencer personally." Michael released the radio. Through the rain, he could see Frances whispering urgently to Diana, stroking her wet hair, kissing her forehead over and over. The little girl clung to her mother's coat with white-knuckled fists. This wasn't supposed to happen at schools like Riddlesworth Hall. This was a place of order, tradition, and breeding, where aristocratic children learned to control their emotions, follow rules, and maintain dignity at all times. But there was nothing dignified about this. "Sarah," Frances called out, her voice breaking. "Please, darling." "Come here," Sarah took one step forward, then stopped. "Daddy said you left us," she said quietly. Her voice carried in the rain. "He said you chose someone else." Frances flinched like she'd been slapped. "That's not true," she said. "I would never choose to leave you. Never. Do you hear me? Then why are you going to Scotland?" Sarah's chin trembled. "Why aren't you coming home?" Michael felt like he was intruding on something sacred and terrible. He turned slightly, giving them privacy while still maintaining his post. But he could hear everything. "Because the court won't let me take you," Frances said. "Your father has custody. I'm fighting for you, both of you, but these things take time." "Darling, please believe me, the headmistress said you're not allowed to visit anymore," Sarah interrupted. She said, "Daddy's lawyers sent papers."
Yes.
Frances closed her eyes. Rain streamed down her face, mixing with tears. Diana pulled back suddenly, staring at her mother with wide, frightened eyes. "Are you dying? Is that why you can't stay?" "No, baby, no." Frances cupped her daughter's face. "I'm not dying. I just have to go away for a little while. But I'm coming back. I promise you, I'm coming back." "Adults always promise," Sarah said bitterly from the doorway. "Then they break them." The headmistress appeared then, a tall woman in a gray suit, holding an umbrella like a weapon. She marched down the path with 2 staff members flanking her. "Mrs. Shankid, you are trespassing. I must ask you to leave immediately." Frances didn't move. She held Diana tighter. 5 minutes, she pleaded.
Nice.
Just 5 minutes. "You were denied visitation rights for a reason." The headmistress's voice was cold. "The Earl Spencer was very clear about your influence on the children's emotional stability." "Emotional stability?" Frances's voice rose. "You call separating a child from her mother stable?" Michael saw Sarah finally break. She ran down the path, skidding to a stop beside her mother and sister. Frances wrapped one arm around her, pulling both girls close. For a moment, the 3 of them were a unit again, a family. Frances rocked them gently, humming something soft that got lost in the rain. The headmistress snapped her fingers at Michael. "Guard, escort her out." Michael didn't move. "That's an order, Harrison." He looked at the 3 of them, huddled together in the rain. Then at the headmistress. Then at his own hands. "Ma'am, with respect, I'm here to protect the children. Right now, they're not in any danger." The headmistress's eyes went wide. "You're refusing a direct order?" "I'm exercising judgment, ma'am." What he didn't know was that someone else was watching this entire scene unfold. Someone who had the power to make or break careers, destroy reputations, and reach the highest levels of British society in exactly 90 seconds. That person would make a phone call that would change everything. Asterisk, the headmistress pulled a whistle from her pocket. The shrill blast cut through the rain like a knife. Within seconds, 2 male staff members appeared, both large enough to physically remove Frances from the grounds. "Wait," Sarah shouted. "Please, just let her say goodbye properly." But Diana had gone silent. She pressed herself against her mother, eyes squeezed shut. as if not seeing the men approach would make them disappear. Frances kissed the top of Diana's head one last time. Then, with visible effort, she loosened her grip. "Listen to me, both of you," she whispered urgently. "I need you to be brave." "Can you do that for me?" Diana shook her head violently. "Yes, you can. You're my brave girls. And I'm going to write you every single day. Every day. Even if you don't get the letters right away, I'm writing them. Do you understand?" Sarah nodded, tears streaming. Diana kept shaking her head. The men reached for Frances's arms. That's when a car door slammed. Everyone turned. A black Bentley had pulled up behind Frances's Rover, so quietly in the rain that no one had noticed. A man stepped out, elderly but commanding, wearing a perfectly tailored suit despite the weather. Lord Fermoy, Diana's maternal grandfather? "Robert," Frances breathed. "I didn't know you were Silence." His voice was like gravel. He walked past Michael without acknowledging him, past the headmistress, straight to where Frances knelt with the children. Michael had heard of Lord Fermoy. Everyone had. A powerful landowner with connections to the royal family itself. His wife, Ruth Fermoy, was one of the Queen Mother's closest friends. "Get up," he told Frances. "You're making a spectacle." "Father, please," I said, "get up." Frances stood slowly, still holding both girls' hands. Lord Fermoy looked down at Diana and Sarah. His expression softened slightly. "Girls, go inside, now." "Grandpapa, no," Sarah protested. "We have it now." The command in his voice was absolute. Even the headmistress looked nervous. Sarah pulled Diana toward the building. The younger girl looked back, reaching for her mother, but Sarah held firm. They disappeared through the door. The moment they were gone, Lord Fermoy turned to his daughter. "Have you lost your mind entirely? Climbing gates? Causing scenes? The Earl's lawyers will have a field day with this." "I don't care about the lawyers." Frances's composure finally shattered. "I care about my children. They think I abandoned them. You did abandon them. The moment you chose that man over your marriage." Frances reeled back as if struck. "How dare you? How dare I? I'm trying to save what's left of your reputation. And theirs." He pointed toward the school. "Those girls are Spencer's. Do you understand what that means? They have a legacy to uphold. A position in society. And you're jeopardizing all of it with your selfishness." Michael watched Frances's face cycle through rage, grief, and something close to defeat. "They're my daughters," she said quietly. "Not pawns in your social games. They stopped being just your daughters when you violated the terms of your custody arrangement." Lord Fermoy pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. "The Earl's lawyers filed this yesterday. If you attempt to contact the children again outside approved channels, you'll lose all visitation rights permanently. Is that what you want?" Frances stared at the paper. She didn't take it. "This is why you came," she said slowly. "Not to help me. To serve me papers. I came because Ruth heard about your plans to ambush the school. She asked me to intervene before you made things worse. Grandmother Ruth knew." Frances's voice broke. "She knew I was trying to see my own children, and she sent you to stop me." Lord Fermoy's expression didn't change. "She sent me to protect those children from further trauma, which is what someone should have done months ago." The headmistress cleared her throat. "Lord Fermoy, if you could escort Mrs. Shandkid off the premises, we can avoid involving the police." "The police?" Frances looked around wildly. "For trying to see my daughters?" "For trespassing," the headmistress corrected. "You were explicitly denied access." Michael felt his jaw clench. This wasn't right. Whatever Frances had done in her marriage, whatever scandal surrounded her divorce, this wasn't right. Lord Fermoy took his daughter's arm, not gently. "Come, I'll drive you to the station." No, Frances pulled away. "I drove myself. I don't need your help. Your car will be collected later. You're in no state to drive." Frances looked back at the school building. Michael followed her gaze. In a second-floor window, barely visible through the rain, two small faces pressed against the glass. Diana and Sarah watching everything. Frances raised her hands slowly, palm flat against the rain, as if she could reach them through the distance. Diana pressed her small hand against the window glass and mirror image. Lord Fermoy saw it too. His grip on Francis's arm tightened. Don't make this harder on them. Harder. Francis laughed, a broken sound. Do you know what Diana told me last week during my supervised visit? She asked if I still loved her. 6 years old, and she asked if I still loved her. Something flickered in Lord Fermoy's eyes, but his voice remained firm. Then prove you love her by following the rules. By being patient. By not giving the Earl more ammunition. He led her toward his car. Frances went, but she walked backward, keeping her eyes on that window until the very last moment. Michael watched them drive away, Lord Fermoy's Bentley disappearing into the rain. The headmistress turned to him, her face like stone. My office. Now. But before Michael could respond, something happened that no one expected. Diana ran. She burst through the front door of the school, her small feet pounding down the stone steps, her uniform already soaked before she'd gone 3 meters. Diana, stop. Sarah's voice echoed from inside, but Diana didn't stop. She ran down the gravel path, slipping twice, skinning her knee on the second fall but scrambling up without pause. Michael saw her coming, and his training kicked in. He moved to intercept, arms out, to catch her safely, but Diana dodged him with surprising agility, heading straight for the gate. Mummy, she screamed. Mummy, come back. The Bentley was already 100 meters down the road. Michael caught Diana just as she reached the gate, scooping her up before she could climb it like her mother had. She fought him with everything she had, kicking, scratching, screaming. Let me go. Let me go. I want my mummy. Easy, easy, Michael murmured, trying to hold her without hurting her. It's all right. You're safe. I don't want to be safe. I want my mummy. She dissolved into sobs so violent her whole body shook. Michael had no idea what to do. His training hadn't covered this. Hold the child, keep the child secure, wait for staff. But something made him sit down right there in the rain, still holding Diana, and let her cry. Sarah appeared, running down the path with 2 other teachers chasing her. She dropped to her knees beside Michael and wrapped her arms around her sister. I'm here, Diana. I'm here. I've got you. She left us again, Diana choked out. She always leaves. I know. I know. Michael looked up at the teachers, both staring at him with identical expressions of shock. A royal guard, sitting in the mud, holding a sobbing child, one of them. A younger woman with kind eyes knelt beside them. Diana, sweetheart, let's get you inside. You'll catch your death out here. Diana clung to Sarah harder. The headmistress arrived, breathing hard from hurrying. She took in the scene, the guard sitting in the rain. The 2 Spencer girls wrapped around each other, the gathering of staff. For a moment, something human crossed her face. Then it was gone. Sarah, take your sister to the infirmary. Mrs. Collins will get you both dry clothes and hot tea. Sarah helped Diana to her feet. The little girl's face was blotchy and red, her eyes swollen. She looked at Michael with an expression far too old for her age. You let her in? She said quietly. But you didn't let her stay. Before Michael could respond, Sarah led her away. The headmistress waited until they were inside. Then she turned to Michael, her voice low and dangerous. My office. 5 minutes. She walked away without waiting for acknowledgement. Michael stood slowly, his uniform covered in mud, his career likely over. The other teachers dispersed, whispering to each other. He was alone at the gate when the younger teacher, Mrs. Collins, came back out. That was kind, she said quietly. What you did. Sitting with her, it didn't help. You'd be surprised. She glanced back at the school. Diana doesn't let most people touch her when she's upset. Not since her mother left the first time. She usually locks herself in the bathroom and cries alone. Michael looked at her sharply. How often does that happen? 3-4 times a week. Sometimes more. Mrs. Collins wrapped her cardigan tighter against the rain. The headmistress doesn't like us talking about it. Says it's a private family matter. But those girls are hurting in ways that have nothing to do with privacy. Does their father visit? Once a month, if that. He sends gifts. Toys, books, expensive things. But Diana doesn't play with them. She lines them up in her closet like soldiers and closes the door. Michael felt sick. What about their grandmother? Lady Fermoy. Mrs. Collins's expression darkened. She visits twice a term. Checks their posture, their manners, their deportment. Makes sure they're being raised properly, whatever that means. But she doesn't hug them. Doesn't ask how they're feeling. Just inspects them like prize horses. That's not right. No, Mrs. Collins agreed. But that's how these families work. Duty over love. Appearance over truth. And children like Diana and Sarah learn to bury their feelings so deep, they sometimes forget how to feel at all. She started back toward the building, then paused. You're about to lose your job, aren't you? Michael nodded. Was it worth it? Letting her in? He thought about Diana's face when she saw her mother. The way she'd run, completely unguarded, completely desperate. The way Frances had held her, like she was holding her whole world together, as he said. It was worth it. Mrs. Collins smiled sadly. Then you're a better person than most of us here. She left him standing in the rain. Michael walked toward the headmistress's office, his boots heavy with mud. He'd broken protocol. Disobeyed a direct order. Allowed an unauthorized person onto restricted grounds. But he'd also witnessed something that would stay with him forever. A mother's love, colliding with society's rules. And a little girl caught in between. The headmistress was waiting for him, the phone already in her hand. But what she was about to tell him would make everything that had happened that day seem like just the beginning of a much larger storm. Because someone else had witnessed the entire scene. Someone with enough power to make sure this story never saw the light of day. Or so they thought. Asterisk, the headmistress's office smelled of old wood and lavender. Michael stood at attention. Water dripping from his uniform onto the Persian rug. She sat behind her desk, hands folded, face unreadable. Do you understand what you've done? She asked quietly. Yes, ma'am. Do you understand the position you've put this institution in? Michael hesitated. Ma'am, with respect, I was thinking about the position those children were in. Her eyes flashed. Those children are my responsibility, not yours. Your responsibility was to maintain security protocols, which you violated. A 6-year-old girl was running toward a gate in the rain after you allowed her mother through that gate. A mother who had explicit restrictions on her access. The headmistress stood, walking to the window. The Earl Spencer has been notified. He's furious, as you might imagine. Michael's stomach dropped. I see. No, I don't think you do. She turned to face him. The Earl Spencer is one of Britain's most prominent nobles. His family has connections to the royal family itself. And you, a security guard, decided to override a court order based on your feelings. It wasn't about feelings, ma'am. It was about a child's welfare. Was it? She tilted her head. Or was it about a pretty woman in distress pleading with you? Because from where I stood, it looked like you were manipulated by someone who's become quite skilled at manipulation. Michael felt heat rise in his face. Mrs. Shankid was desperate to see her daughters. There was nothing manipulative about it. Then you're more naive than I thought. The headmistress returned to her desk, pulling out a file. Frances Shankid abandoned her husband and 4 children for another man. She violated her marriage vows, destroyed her family, and caused a scandal that's been in every newspaper in Britain. The courts determined she was an unfit mother. And yet you decided you knew better. The courts determined custody, ma'am. Not whether she loved her children. Love. The headmistress said the word like it tasted bitter. Love is not enough to raise children properly. Stability is. Structure is. And those children need protection from chaos, even when that chaos comes wrapped in maternal affection. Michael said nothing. What could he say? The headmistress opened the file. I have your termination papers here. Effective immediately, you'll be escorted off the grounds tonight. Your severance will be minimal, given the circumstances. He'd expected this. But hearing it still felt like a punch to the gut. However, she continued, closing the file without signing it. I received a phone call 20 minutes ago that's complicated matters. Michael frowned. Ma'am. Ruth, Lady Fermoy called personally. It seemed she was watching from her car across the street. She saw everything that transpired. Michael's blood ran cold. Lady Fermoy, the Queen Mother's lady-in-waiting. If she reported this to the royal household, the scandal would be enormous. She saw you let Frances through the gate, saw you refuse to remove her immediately, saw you sit in the rain with Diana, yes, ma'am? The headmistress studied him for a long moment. She said you showed more humanity in 5 minutes than most people in the Spencer family have shown those girls in a year. Michael blinked. I'm sorry, what? Apparently Lady Fermoy is not pleased with how her granddaughters are being handled. She disagrees with many of the restrictions placed on Frances's access. But her hands are tied by social expectations and her own position. Then why doesn't she help them? Because helping them would mean going against her son-in-law, against her own social circle, against everything she's built her life on. Now the headmistress sighed. Ruth Fermoy is a woman caught between her love for her granddaughters and her duty to maintain appearances. Not unlike you were this afternoon. So what does this mean for me? It means you're not fired. Lady Fermoy was very clear that any dismissal of you would be met with her personal displeasure. And trust me, no one wants Ruth Fermoy's displeasure. Relief flooded through Michael, followed immediately by confusion. I don't understand. She sent her son to remove Frances. She supports the custody arrangement. Why would she protect me? The headmistress leaned back in her chair. Because sometimes, Mr. Harrison, people need others to do what they cannot do themselves. Lady Fermoy couldn't allow Frances to stay without causing a scandal. But she could ensure that the man who showed her daughter compassion wasn't punished for it. Michael slowly understood. She wanted me to let Frances in. She would never admit that. But yes, I believe so. The headmistress reopened the file, pulling out a different paper. You're being transferred. Effective next week. Different posting, same pay grade. The official reason is routine rotation. Where am I being transferred to? A private estate in Northamptonshire. Althorpe House. The Spencer family seat. Michael's eyes widened. You're sending me to work for the Earl? The man who wanted me fired? Not for the Earl. The posting is to provide security for the estate when the children are in residence during school holidays. You'll be one of several guards, but you'll have the most contact with Diana and Sarah. I don't understand. Why would because Lady Fermoy requested it specifically? She wants someone watching over those girls who sees them as children first and Spencer heirs second. The headmistress's expression softened slightly. She knows what you did today, went against protocol. She also knows it was the right thing to do. And she wants to make sure someone with that judgment is nearby when her granddaughters need it. Michael took the transfer papers with shaking hands. One more thing, the headmistress said as he turned to leave. What happened today, the scene at the gate, cannot be discussed. Not with other staff, not with friends, not with family. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. The Spencer family has enough scandal without adding more fuel to the fire. Frances's visit, your decision, all of it stays here. Michael nodded and left the office. His mind reeling. He had 1 week left at Riddlesworth Hall. 1 week before he started a new posting at Althorpe. Watching over the same 2 girls he'd seen torn apart today, that night he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing Diana's face pressed against the window, her small hand matching her mother's through the glass. But what Michael didn't know was that this was just the beginning of his connection to the Spencer family. In the years to come, he would witness things that would break his heart and restore his faith in humanity. He would watch Diana grow from a broken little girl into someone extraordinary, and he would keep every secret. Hold every confidence until the day came when staying silent was no longer an option. 3 days after the incident, Michael was doing his evening rounds when he heard crying from the garden. He found Diana sitting under an oak tree, still in her school uniform, holding a crumpled piece of paper. Miss Spencer, he said gently, it's past curfew. You should be inside. She looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. She didn't move. Michael glanced around. No other staff in sight. He sat down on the wet grass beside her, far enough to be proper, close enough to matter. What's that you're holding? He asked. Diana's fingers tightened on the paper. A letter. From Mummy, the headmistress gave it to me today. That's good, isn't it? That she wrote to you? She says she's sorry. Diana's voice was barely above a whisper. She says she thinks about me every day. She says she's fighting to see us more. Those sound like good things. But she also says she can't promise when we'll see her next. She says it depends on the courts and Daddy's lawyers and things I don't understand. A tear rolled down Diana's cheek. Why do adults make everything so complicated? Michael had no answer for that. The other girls' parents visit every weekend, Diana continued. They bring sweets and take them to lunch and never forget birthdays. But my mummy can't even visit on my birthday because some judge says she's not allowed. It's not because she doesn't want to, Michael said carefully. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that have consequences they didn't expect. Everyone says Mummy made a mistake, that she was selfish, that she ruined everything. Diana looked at him. But she didn't feel selfish when she held me. She felt like Mummy. Michael's throat tightened. No matter what anyone says, your mother loves you. I saw it that day at the gate. That kind of love doesn't fake itself. Then why doesn't love matter more than rules? It was a question Michael would spend the rest of his life trying to answer. I don't know, he said honestly. But I think sometimes rules get made by people who forget what love looks like. And by the time they remember, the rules are already in place. Diana wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. You let her through the gate. The other guards wouldn't have. I probably shouldn't have, but you did anyway. She looked at him with those impossibly blue eyes. Why? Because you were running toward her. And she was running toward you. And sometimes, in moments like that, the right thing to do is obvious, even when it breaks the rules. Diana was quiet for a long moment. Then she folded the letter carefully and put it in her pocket. I'm going to keep every letter she sends, she said. Even if I can only see her twice a year, I'm going to keep them all. So I remember she didn't forget about me. She won't forget about you, Michael said firmly. Mothers don't forget their children. They sat in silence as the sun set behind the school. Eventually, Mrs. Collins came looking for Diana, tutting about missed dinner and wet grass. But her eyes were kind when she saw Michael sitting with the girl. A week later, Michael arrived at Althorpe House. The Spencer estate was massive. All honey-colored stone and perfectly manicured lawns. He was given a small cottage on the grounds and a schedule for when the children would be in residence. The Earl Spencer met him once, briefly during orientation. He was a tall, handsome man with cold eyes and a firm handshake. The children are to be kept on schedule at all times, he said. No deviations. No special treatment. And absolutely no contact with their mother unless I've explicitly approved it in advance. Yes. Sir, I understand you were present during an unfortunate incident at Riddlesworth Hall. Michael's stomach clenched. Yes, sir. Lady Fermoy assures me you handled it appropriately given the circumstances. I expect the same sound judgment here. The Earl's eyes narrowed. But understand this. My children have been through enough upheaval. They need stability, not sentiment. Can you provide that? I'll do my best, sir. See that you do. The Earl left, and Michael didn't see him again for 3 months. But he saw Diana and Sarah constantly. They spent their holidays at Althorpe, 2 small figures in an enormous house, often left to their own devices while their father traveled. Diana was different at Althorpe than she'd been at school, quieter, more careful. She walked the halls like she was trying not to take up too much space. But sometimes, late at night, Michael would hear her crying in her room. And he understood that the little girl who'd run through the rain was still there, just buried under layers of etiquette and expectation. Years passed. Diana grew up. She became a teenager, then a young woman. Michael watched her navigate her parents' bitter divorce. Watched her learn to smile for cameras while breaking apart inside. Watched her try to be perfect enough to make everyone love her again. And when she was 19 years old and about to marry a prince, Diana found Michael at a garden party at Althorpe. I never thanked you, she said quietly, standing beside him while the other guests mingled. For that day at school, for letting my mother through the gate. You don't need to thank me, Miss Spencer. Yes, I do. She looked at him, and he saw the 6-year-old girl still there in her eyes. That was the last time I really talked to her for years. If you hadn't let her in, I wouldn't have that memory. I wouldn't have known she tried. Michael felt his eyes sting. She never stopped trying. I know that now. But I didn't then. And that 5 minutes with her, even though it ended badly, it mattered. You've helped me understand that love and rules don't always align. And sometimes breaking protocol is the most human thing you can do. Diana smiled, and for a moment she looked genuinely happy. I'm going to try to remember that, she said. When I'm in the royal family, surrounded by all their protocols and rules, I'm going to remember that sometimes. The most important thing is just to be human. Then she walked away, back to her guests, back to her prince, back to a life that would eventually break her and remake her into a woman the whole world would love. Michael retired 5 years later. He never spoke publicly about what he saw that rainy day in September. He kept his promise to stay silent, but he kept the memory of a mother's desperate love and a daughter's running footsteps. He kept the memory of the moment when he chose compassion over protocol. And years later, when news broke of Diana's death in Paris, when the world mourned the people's princess, Michael sat in his small cottage and cried, because he remembered her not as a princess, but as a little girl in the rain, running toward her mother, believing that love could conquer anything, and maybe, in the end, it did. Maybe that's the story that matters most. Not the rules that were broken or the protocol that was shattered, but the moment when a guard, a mother, and a child all chose love over everything else, even if just for 5 minutes in the rain.